Are tiny homes worth it? Is a question I'm often asked. Someone gets mad at their homeowners association or just frustrated with the hassles of maintaining a home or just the busyness of life for that matter. But there's a lot to consider here. Questions like, will the local government permit a tiny home, and will I even like living in a tiny home, are real questions that need to be considered. So today I'm going to be taking just a few minutes to address these questions about tiny homes, and I'll breathe some rational thought into it by looking at a few pros and some cons of tiny home living. Before we can determine if a tiny home is worth it for you, let's first identify what a tiny home is for our purposes today. We'll define a tiny home as a mobile dwelling with approximately 100 to 450 square feet. They're popular because their affordability, their simplicity, and small environmental footprint. A tiny home could just be a shed that's dressed up with a bit of electricity, water, a bath, a kitchen, and maybe some heat and air, and you're good to go. There are all sorts of customization options for tiny homes, and they can be very, very nice. They're generally inexpensive, with the cost of these homes starting at $8,000 to $10,000 and going all the way up to $50,000 or $60,000. Of course, you could spend as much as you want, I guess, but that may be defeating that whole affordability benefit that I spoke of a minute ago. Most of the tiny home sales in the U.S. have been to those looking to invest as an accessory dwelling unit or to rent them out. Of course, you could put your adult child or your grandma out there, or even rent it out full-time if permitted by the local government. Before I get to one of the most difficult questions you'll need to ask yourself about tiny home living, show your support for this small local channel by hitting the like and the subscribe buttons. And if you'd like more information like this, then hit that little notification bell. So let's address one of the greatest concerns that I've seen with tiny homes, and that is whether or not the local government will even allow a tiny home. I can only speak to where I live here in Central Florida. But as a whole, county governments and even some states are generally not friendly towards their use, and getting permission past the zoning department is often very tricky. Tiny homes could be utilized as an accessory dwelling unit, as I spoke of before, but you'll need someone with a conventional home, and you'll need to be in agreement with them that they're okay with your tiny home placed on their land. If you want to place a tiny home on a piece of land here in Central Florida, some calls or a trip to the county courthouse should be one of your very first steps to determine if tiny home living is an option for you. Manufactured homes are treated as somewhat less than conventionally built homes, but tiny homes appear to be thought of as even still lowlier in my mind. Although tiny homes are often desired for their privacy, there have been several communities, sometimes RV parks, that encourage tiny homes, including one right here in Orlando. I'll include a link towards the end of this video if you'd like to learn more about that one. I've never owned a tiny home, so if you have, I'd really love to hear your thoughts on the matter. Has it been worth it for you? What are some other considerations that you'd recommend for those trying to determine if tiny homes are worth it? Put those comments below so that we can all benefit from your knowledge. The idea of a tiny home it's kind of a romantic one. No more spending every weekend on the yard and repainting the home. I can spend more time on the things I want to do and less time on the things that I have to do. Although tiny homes are affordable when compared to traditional housing, if you drop even, $25,000 on a home, you'd better be sure you like it. $25,000 is still a lot of money to most of us, including me. Being priced more affordably, cash purchases are more common than with traditional homes. Obtaining financing for a tiny home is not as desirable as it is for financing on a traditional home. A personal loan or RV financing may be necessary, but these types of loans often require higher interest rates and larger down payments if they're even available to you based on your financial situation. This is an often overlooked cost of tiny home living, especially if you aren't certain that you're going to even enjoy it. The average tiny house is just around 225 square feet, while the average conventionally built home is around 2,000 square feet. For reference, a typical bedroom in a conventionally built home is around 100 square feet, so there goes almost 50% of your total living space. There's like zero space in these things. Little things like where to put photos of your loved ones, or that favorite trinket, those extra boots, or the raincoat, or even where to put the coffee pot are serious considerations that need to be taken into account to determine if a tiny home living is worth it for you. If you're a true hardcore minimalist, then maybe it's for you, but most of us, we like our stuff. A year or so ago, I helped a couple sell their large parcel of land, and they lived in their RV for over a year. Now, it was good size, probably 500 square feet. And let me tell you something, they were over it. They thought it would be cool, but to them, it grew old real quick, and they couldn't wait to get back to a regular home. There is one more huge issue to deal with that I'm going to come to next, but if you've got real estate needs anywhere at all, either leave a comment down below or just pick up the phone and give us a call. If it turns out that you don't like tiny home living, you could be in a financial bind as the resale value of tiny homes is just not as good as that of typical real estate. The resale value is more similar to that, of an RV, which is really not good. Spending that kind of dough just to determine that it's not for you, and then realizing that real estate prices have skyrocketed while you spent your time cramped into this tiny little home could be heartbreaking. Now, I don't want to sound like it's all bad because it's really not. It could be a life-changing purchase if it is for you and you are able to enjoy an extended period of time in your tiny home. Then it could be a financial windfall for you. Taxes, insurance, and maintenance expenses are real, but these could be significantly lower in tiny homes. Having more time to spend on living your life and less time working on your life is a dream for many, including me. So if you're certain you can make a go of it, then rock on. A tiny home could be just what you need to spend more of your time living life and less of your time working on it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.